13. Celebrities fighting for their lives. Illness does not care about fame, fortune, or applause. One strange symptom, one misstep, one diagnosis whispered behind a closed door. In a single moment, a powerful body can weaken, a familiar voice can fade, and an entire life can be forced into survival mode. Under the lights, they looked unstoppable, singing, acting, laughing, and commanding the world's attention. But away from the cameras, many were hiding pain, exhausting treatments, failing organs, and terrifying uncertainty, afraid that the truth might end their careers before the disease did. Today on Black Hollywood Uncut, we are pulling back the curtain on 13 celebrities facing serious, life-changing illnesses. Stay until the final second, because the last stories reveal courage, sacrifice, and medical battles few fans ever imagined. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Celine Marie Claudette Dion, 58, age now. For decades, Celine Dion seemed almost indestructible. Born into a large musical family in Charlemagne, Quebec, she began performing as a child, before evolving into one of the most powerful and commercially successful vocalists in modern music. Her international breakthrough accelerated through Beauty and the Beast, The Power of Love, Because You Loved Me, and the song that became inseparable from her name, My Heart Will Go On. With extraordinary control, emotional clarity, and a voice built for enormous arenas, Dion transformed heartbreak into something millions of listeners could share. Her albums Falling Into You and Let's Talk About Love helped establish her as a defining global star of the 1990s. But behind the standing ovations, her body was beginning to resist the life she had spent decades mastering. In December 2022, Dion revealed that she had been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome, a rare neurological disorder associated with severe muscle stiffness and painful spasms. The condition forced her to cancel the remaining dates of her Courage World Tour, while her medical team continued treatment and evaluation. It did not simply interrupt her schedule. It challenged the physical coordination required to stand, move, breathe, and sing with the precision audiences had always taken for granted. The original transcript describes the disease as steadily stealing her voice. That wording is too absolute. Dion has spoken openly about how the illness affects her muscles and ability to perform, but it should not be claimed that her voice has been permanently lost. Her return during the opening ceremony of the 2024 Paris Olympics, where she performed Hymne à l'amour from the Eiffel Tower, demonstrated both the seriousness of her struggle and the strength that remained. It was not proof that she had been cured. It was a carefully achieved moment of defiance. Dion has also turned her diagnosis into action. Her foundation committed $2 million to support autoimmune neurology research, helping establish an endowed academic chair connected to the study of stiff person syndrome and related disorders. At 58, Celine Dion is not a fading star waiting for tragedy. She is an artist adapting to a life she never expected. The disease changed the stage, the schedule, and the body carrying that legendary voice. It did not erase the woman behind it. For years, she sang about survival. Now, every carefully reclaimed note has become survival itself. Walter Bruce Willis, 71 age. Now Bruce Willis built his legend around men who refused to surrender. Born in West Germany and raised in New Jersey, he first became a television star through Moonlighting, where his rapid dialogue and comic chemistry revealed a lighter side that action cinema would later overshadow. Then Die Hard transformed him into John McClane, the exhausted, wounded, stubborn hero who survived through instinct rather than invincibility. Pulp Fiction, 12 Monkeys, The Fifth Element, Armageddon, The Sixth Sense, and Unbreakable proved that Willis could move between comedy, science fiction, suspense, and emotional drama while remaining unmistakably himself. But the final chapter of his career arrived without an explosion or a triumphant escape. In March 2022, his family announced that Willis was stepping away from acting after being diagnosed with aphasia, a condition affecting communication. In February 2023, they revealed that his condition had progressed and that doctors had reached a more specific diagnosis, frontotemporal dementia, commonly known as FTD. His family explained that communication difficulties were only one part of a broader disease affecting his life. The original transcript describes the illness as stealing his memories and creating a tragic end to his career. That wording goes beyond what his family officially confirmed. FTD can affect language, behavior, personality, judgment, and movement, but its symptoms vary from person to person. It is therefore irresponsible to claim specific losses that have not been publicly disclosed. The strongest version of Willis's story is already powerful, without invented details. An actor celebrated for his voice, timing, and controlled physical presence was forced to retire because communication itself had become increasingly difficult. His family has approached the diagnosis with unusual openness, while also asking for compassion and privacy. Their public statement emphasized Willis's lifelong joy, his desire to help others, and their hope that his visibility would bring greater attention to families living with this debilitating condition. At 71, Bruce Willis should not be reduced to a helpless shadow of his former self. The disease has changed his circumstances, but it has not erased the work, humor, and affection surrounding him. On screen, he became famous for surviving impossible situations alone. In real life, his most difficult battle is being faced differently, away from the cameras, surrounded by the family, determined to ensure that he never faces it alone.
Michael Andrew Fox, 65 age now. Michael J. Fox became a symbol of youthful energy long before the world understood how much effort movement would eventually require from him. Born Michael Andrew Fox in Edmonton, Canada, he found fame as the confident young conservative Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. Then Back to the Future made him an international icon. As Marty McFly, Fox raced through time with effortless speed, comic timing, and physical precision. Films including Teen Wolf, The Secret of My Success, Doc Hollywood, and Casualties of War expanded his range, while Spin City later returned him to the center of American television. Behind that extraordinary momentum, something frightening had already begun. In 1991, while still only 29, Fox was diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's disease. He kept the diagnosis private for years, continuing to perform while struggling to understand what the future might hold. In 1998, he publicly revealed his condition. 2 years later, he established the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, transforming a deeply personal crisis into one of the world's most influential campaigns for medical progress. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder that can affect movement, balance, speech, and other functions. For Fox, the disease has brought tremors, falls, injuries, and increasing physical limitations. Yet the original transcript becomes misleading when it frames him only as a dynamic star being slowly destroyed. Fox himself has resisted both pity and false inspiration. He has spoken candidly about pain, fear, frustration, and the practical dangers of falling, while insisting that acceptance is not the same as defeat. His foundation has funded extensive research and helped accelerate work on biological markers that may improve diagnosis and the testing of future treatments. By 2023, its work had helped direct billions of dollars toward Parkinson's research and contributed to a major biomarker breakthrough. At 65, Michael J. Fox is no longer the young man audiences remember racing beside a DeLorean. His body has changed, and his acting career has been reduced by the disease. But his influence has grown in another direction. He turned private fear into public purpose and celebrity into scientific momentum. Marty McFly spent his story trying to repair the future. Michael J. Fox has spent decades doing something remarkably similar. Not with a time machine, but with honesty, research, and the refusal to let Parkinson's have the final word.
Selena Marie Gomez, 33 age. Now Selena Gomez grew up beneath a spotlight that rarely allowed her pain to remain private. Born in Grand Prairie, Texas, she began acting as a child before becoming internationally known through Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place. Music soon expanded her audience through songs such as Come and Get It, Lose You to Love Me, and Calm Down, while Only Murders in the Building established her as an accomplished adult actress and producer. Yet behind the awards, beauty campaigns, and carefully composed appearances, Gomez was confronting a disease capable of attacking multiple parts of the body without warning. She was diagnosed with lupus, a chronic autoimmune condition in which the immune system mistakenly attacks healthy tissue. The illness can produce periods of relative stability, followed by unpredictable flares, making its course difficult to control. Gomez underwent chemotherapy as part of her treatment and temporarily stepped away from work. In 2017, she revealed that lupus had severely damaged her kidneys and that she had received a transplant from her friend, actress Francia Raisa. Gomez later explained that her kidneys had been failing and that the transplant became necessary for her survival and long-term health. The surgery itself was not simple. Gomez experienced a serious complication when an artery ruptured, requiring additional emergency surgery to repair the blood supply to the transplanted kidney. That detail matters, because the original transcript presents the transplant as one dramatic event, when the reality involved danger, prolonged recovery, medication, and lifelong medical monitoring. Gomez has also spoken publicly about anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and periods of intensive treatment. These conditions should not be blended together as one mysterious tragedy, or used to imply that she is constantly near death. Her openness has instead helped challenge the shame surrounding both chronic illness and mental health care. Through Rare Beauty and the Rare Impact Fund, she has supported initiatives intended to expand mental health education and access. At 33, Selena Gomez is not simply a former child star weakened by disease. She is a performer who learned that survival sometimes requires stepping away, asking for help, and allowing others to see the reality behind a polished image. Lupus changed her body and nearly took her kidney function. It did not take her ability to rebuild. The cameras once captured a young woman expected to appear perfect. Her most powerful work began when she stopped hiding what perfection had cost. Neil Leslie Diamond, 85 age. Now, Neil Diamond built his career from songs that sounded as though they belonged to everyone. Born in Brooklyn in 1941, he began writing music while still young, and eventually became one of America's most successful singer-songwriters. Sweet Caroline, Cracklin' Rosie, Song Sung Blue, America, and I Said, turned personal emotion into enormous communal experiences. His voice was rough, warm, and instantly recognizable, while his concerts transformed simple melodies into moments shared by entire stadiums. For more than 50 years, Diamond lived through constant movement, recording, traveling, rehearsing, and walking onto stages where thousands waited for the first familiar note. That rhythm changed abruptly in January 2018, when he announced that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Following medical advice, he canceled the remaining dates of his 50th anniversary tour and retired from concert touring. In his statement, Diamond emphasized that he was leaving the road, not abandoning music, and hoped to continue writing, recording, and developing new projects. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder that can affect movement, balance, speech, sleep, and many other functions. Its course differs widely between individuals. For an artist whose career depended on physical timing, vocal control, and the stamina required to command a stage, the diagnosis represented more than a medical label. It forced him to surrender the daily ritual that had defined much of his adult life. The original transcript describes the spotlight fading and leaves an impression of complete disappearance. That framing is too final. Diamond has made occasional public appearances since retiring from touring and has remained connected to his music. He surprised audiences during performances associated with A Beautiful Noise, the Broadway musical based on his life, and has spoken about gradually accepting his diagnosis. Retirement from touring did not erase his creative identity. It changed the way he could express it. At 85, Neil Diamond lives with a serious and progressive illness. But his story is not merely one of decline. Parkinson's took away the certainty of the next tour, not the songs already woven into weddings, stadiums, family memories, and generations of American life. For decades, crowds sang Sweet Caroline back to him until performer and audience became almost indistinguishable. Now, even when Diamond is absent from the stage, That chorus continues without him, a reminder that illness can limit the body while leaving the music impossibly alive.
Christina Applegate, 54, age now. Christina Applegate spent decades making difficult performances appear effortless. Born in Hollywood in 1971, she began acting as a child before becoming famous as Kelly Bundy on Married with Children. The role made her a television icon, but Applegate refused to remain trapped inside the image of a glamorous sitcom daughter. She moved through comedy, film, Broadway, and dramatic television, earning acclaim for Samantha Who, Anchorman, Bad Moms, and the dark Netflix series Dead to Me. Her first major health crisis arrived in 2008, when screening detected early-stage breast cancer. Applegate carried a BRCA1 gene mutation and chose to undergo a double mastectomy, although the cancer had been found in only one breast. She later admitted that her upbeat public comments during that period concealed fear, grief, and anger she had not yet allowed herself to express. More than a decade later, another diagnosis altered nearly every part of her life. Applegate revealed in 2021 that she had multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease affecting the central nervous system. Symptoms had already appeared while she was filming the final season of Dead to Me, forcing production to pause and eventually adapt around her mobility limitations. She completed the series while using assistants on set, transforming a private medical struggle into one of the most demanding performances of her career. The original transcript correctly recognizes the seriousness of her condition, but language suggesting that she is simply being robbed of movement removes her agency. Applegate has spoken with striking honesty about severe pain, fatigue, difficulty walking, and rarely leaving home. In 2026, she said much of her time was spent in bed because movement could be intensely painful. She has also emphasized that MS has no cure, and that living with it means navigating better days and worse ones, not following a simple, inspirational recovery narrative. Through the podcast Misi, created with fellow actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, Applegate has challenged shame, unsolicited miracle cures, and unrealistic expectations placed on disabled performers. She does not pretend illness made her grateful or spiritually complete. Her honesty is more powerful precisely because it refuses that polished ending. At 54, Christina Applegate is not only a survivor of cancer or a woman living with MS. She is an artist confronting the loss of physical freedom without surrendering her voice. Hollywood once rewarded her for delivering perfect comic timing. Her most important role now may be revealing what happens when life refuses to follow the script.
Toni Michele Braxton, 58. Age now. Toni Braxton entered music with a voice that sounded both powerful and wounded. Born in Maryland in 1967, she rose from a deeply religious musical family to become one of the defining R&B singers of the 1990s. Her self-titled debut introduced the smoky contralto behind Another Sad Love Song and Breathe Again. Then, Unbreak My Heart became a worldwide anthem, transforming private devastation into one of the decade's most unforgettable vocal performances. Grammy Awards, platinum albums, sold-out concerts, and an enduring place in R&B history followed. But the emotional ache audiences heard in her music eventually became accompanied by a medical struggle she could not simply sing through. Braxton has lived for years with systemic lupus erythematosus, an autoimmune disease capable of attacking the skin, joints, blood vessels, kidneys, heart, and other organs. She has said that people around her initially encouraged secrecy because the entertainment industry could become fearful when a celebrity was publicly associated with serious illness. Her diagnosis followed frightening heart complications. Braxton experienced pericarditis, inflammation around the heart, and has described a heart attack as part of the medical crisis that led doctors toward identifying lupus. The condition later placed her heart at risk again. In 2023, she revealed that doctors discovered a dangerous blockage in a major coronary artery during a routine appointment. leading to urgent surgery and the insertion of a stent. She credited consistent medical monitoring with potentially saving her life. The transcript is correct that lupus can produce chronic pain, exhaustion, and serious organ complications. However, it should not portray Braxton as permanently standing at death's door. Lupus varies dramatically between patients and can move through periods of flares and relative stability. Her story is about continuous management rather than a single battle with a clean ending. Braxton has used her visibility to encourage regular examinations, heart monitoring, and kidney testing for people living with lupus. She has also participated in awareness campaigns addressing lupus nephritis, a potentially severe kidney complication of the disease. At 58, Toni Braxton continues to perform, record, and speak openly about a condition that once threatened to become an industry secret. Her voice made heartbreak sound beautiful. Her health journey exposed something less polished, but equally powerful. Survival depends not only on strength, but on listening when the body whispers before it begins to scream. Alan Alda, 90 age, now. Alan Alda became famous by making intelligence, humor, and compassion feel inseparable. Born Alfonso Joseph d'Abruzzo in New York City in 1936, he grew up around show business before creating one of television's most enduring characters, as Captain Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce on MASH. Alda used comedy to expose the fear, exhaustion, and moral damage hidden inside war. He did more than perform in the series. He wrote and directed numerous episodes, becoming the first person to win Emmy Awards for acting, writing, and directing the same television program. His career continued through films including The Four Seasons, Crimes and Misdemeanors, The Aviator, and Bridge of Spies. Beyond acting, Alda became a passionate advocate for clearer scientific communication, helping establish the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. His curiosity became nearly as recognizable as Hawkeye's wit. In 2018, Alda publicly revealed that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease approximately 3.5 years earlier. He had sought medical evaluation after reading that physically acting out dreams during sleep could sometimes be an early warning sign. Rather than waiting for severe symptoms, he requested a brain scan that helped confirm the diagnosis. At the time of his announcement, Alda emphasized that he continued working and living a full life. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological condition that can affect movement, balance, speech, and daily independence. Alda has not hidden the increasing effort required to manage it. He has described treatment, exercise, medication, and constant adjustment as almost a full-time job. Yet he continues searching for humor, instead of presenting himself as either a helpless victim or an invincible inspiration. Recent appearances, podcast work, and his involvement with the Four Seasons remake demonstrate that the disease has changed his routine without silencing his creative life. The original transcript portrays Alda as an aging man, being gradually robbed of control. That framing misses the most compelling part of his story. At 90, he remains engaged, curious, and honest about the limitations he faces. Hawkeye Pierce survived chaos by refusing to surrender his humanity. Alan Alda now confronts Parkinson's with the same essential weapon, the ability to acknowledge fear, communicate clearly, and still find something worth laughing about. Nicholas Scott Cannon, 45 age. Now Nick Cannon built his career by refusing to remain in one lane. Born in San Diego in 1980, he began performing comedy as a teenager before gaining recognition through Nickelodeon's All That and The Nick Cannon Show. He expanded into music, acting, radio, producing, and television hosting, becoming widely known for Wild 'N Out, America's Got Talent, and The Masked Singer. His public image appeared almost endlessly energetic, a performer moving between productions, businesses, and live audiences without ever slowing down. That image changed dramatically in January 2012. Cannon was hospitalized after experiencing kidney failure and was diagnosed with lupus nephritis, a serious complication of systemic lupus erythematosus. Lupus is an autoimmune disease in which the immune system attacks healthy tissue. Lupus nephritis specifically affects the kidneys and can lead to inflammation, impaired filtration, high blood pressure, and potentially permanent kidney damage. Cannon later experienced blood clots in his lungs and additional hospitalizations, turning what initially seemed like sudden exhaustion into a long-term medical crisis. The diagnosis forced him to reconsider the pace of his life. He adopted significant changes involving diet, medication, sleep, exercise, and regular medical monitoring. Cannon has repeatedly described himself as a lupus warrior and emphasized that education helped him replace fear with greater control. He has also spoken about the condition in comedy and interviews, using humor as a way to process an illness that once placed him in potentially life-threatening situations. The original transcript is correct that lupus nephritis can be dangerous, but it overstates his current condition by suggesting constant physical agony and an uninterrupted struggle against death. Cannon continues to manage a chronic disease that can flare unpredictably, but he has not publicly presented himself as terminally ill. The more accurate story is about vigilance. Stable periods do not mean the disease has disappeared, and an energetic television appearance does not eliminate the medical work happening behind it. His visibility has helped challenge assumptions about lupus, a condition often associated primarily with women. By discussing kidney complications, blood testing, and lifestyle changes, Cannon has encouraged men and younger patients to take autoimmune symptoms seriously. At 45, Nick Cannon remains one of entertainment's busiest personalities. Lupus forced him to understand that ambition cannot outrun the body forever. The man who once treated exhaustion as proof of success learned a more difficult lesson. Health is not the pause between projects. It is the foundation that makes every future project possible. Wendy Joan Williams, 61, age. Now Wendy Williams built her career by saying what other broadcasters were too cautious to say aloud. Born in New Jersey in 1964, she rose through urban radio with a sharp, confrontational interview style that made celebrities nervous and audiences loyal. Her move to television transformed The Wendy Williams Show into a daytime institution. With How You Doin' and the daily Hot Topics segment, Williams turned gossip into performance, blending humor, confession, and controversy for more than a decade. Behind that commanding voice, however, her health and personal circumstances became increasingly complicated. Williams had previously spoken publicly about Graves' disease, thyroid problems, lymphedema, and struggles involving alcohol. She stepped away from her talk show in 2021 as health concerns intensified, and the program ended without her returning as its regular host. In February 2024, representatives for her care team announced that Williams had been diagnosed in 2023 with primary progressive aphasia and frontotemporal dementia. The statement said the conditions had created difficulties involving language, communication, behavior, and information processing. These disorders can be progressive and life-altering, but the original transcript goes too far by presenting every reported symptom and legal restriction as a simple, uncontested medical fact. Williams has repeatedly challenged the public portrayal of her condition. During later interviews, she insisted that she was not cognitively impaired and described life under her court-appointed guardianship as isolating and prison-like. Reports in late 2025 also said that a new neurological evaluation had questioned the earlier frontotemporal dementia diagnosis, while other medical and legal reporting continued to support the guardianship. Because those accounts conflict and much of the evidence remains sealed, no responsible script should pretend outsiders know her full condition with certainty. At 61, Wendy Williams is living through more than a medical story. She is also at the center of a difficult debate about autonomy, privacy, guardianship, and who controls the narrative when a public figure becomes vulnerable. For years, Wendy made a career by asking questions other people wanted hidden. Now, the most important questions surround her own life, and the public must resist turning uncertainty into entertainment. Selma Blair Baitner, 54, age. Now, Selma Blair became memorable through characters who appeared sharp, stylish, and emotionally guarded. Born in Michigan in 1972, she gained early recognition in Cruel Intentions before showing her comic range in Legally Blonde, The Sweetest Thing, and the Hellboy films. Her screen presence often carried a mixture of elegance and vulnerability. For years, however, Blair was experiencing physical symptoms that neither audiences nor many doctors fully understood. She later described episodes of numbness, exhaustion, pain, vision problems, weakness, and loss of coordination stretching back many years. Some symptoms were attributed to anxiety, depression, hormones, or stress. In 2018, after experiencing worsening difficulties while working, Blair was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease in which the immune system damages the protective covering of nerves in the brain and spinal cord. The diagnosis brought fear, but also relief. The unexplained changes finally had a name. Blair chose to discuss the disease publicly, appearing at events with a cane and speaking openly when muscle spasms affected her voice. Her symptoms included mobility problems, fatigue, pain, and spasmodic dysphonia. She later underwent an aggressive treatment involving chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant in an effort to reset her immune system. In 2021, she announced that her MS was in remission. Remission, however, does not mean the disease never existed or that every symptom disappeared. By 2026, Blair reported that she remained relapse-free and had returned to acting, while still managing fatigue and the lasting effects of her illness. She emphasized that she was capable of working, though maintaining energy required daily effort. That reality is more accurate than the original transcript's portrayal of a woman trapped in endless physical collapse. Blair has also become a prominent disability advocate, challenging the belief that mobility aids represent defeat. Her cane became not a symbol of surrender, but a visible tool of independence. At 54, Selma Blair's story is not about a star quietly fading away. It is about delayed diagnosis, adaptation, treatment, and the right to remain visible. Hollywood once rewarded her for appearing perfectly composed. Her deeper influence emerged when she allowed the world to see the effort behind every step and refused to apologize for needing support.
Sarah Jane Hyland, 35. Aged now, Sarah Hyland became famous for portraying a teenager whose greatest problems appeared to be romance, fashion, and family embarrassment. Born in New York City in 1990, she began acting as a child before landing the role of Haley Dunphy on Modern Family. For 11 seasons, Hyland delivered fast comedy and youthful confidence, while helping one of television's most successful sitcoms build its warm, chaotic family world. What viewers could not see was that many of those performances were completed while she was living with serious pain, exhaustion, and repeated medical uncertainty. Hyland was born with kidney dysplasia, a condition in which the kidneys do not develop normally. As her kidney function declined, she eventually needed a transplant. In 2012, her father donated a kidney to her, offering what appeared to be a new beginning. But several years later, her body began rejecting the organ. The transplant failed, and Hyland returned to dialysis while doctors searched for another option. In September 2017, she received a second kidney transplant, this time from her younger brother, Ian. The original transcript says she endured multiple organ transplants, but that phrasing is misleading. Hyland received 2 transplants of the same organ, first from her father, then from her brother. Her medical journey has also included numerous additional surgeries and treatment for endometriosis. She has described filming while so physically exhausted that she could barely remember completing certain episodes. Anti-rejection medication and steroids brought further challenges involving weight, strength, and infection risk. The emotional consequences were just as severe. After the first transplant failed, Hyland said she blamed herself and felt she had disappointed her father. She later revealed that she experienced depression and suicidal thoughts because she feared becoming a permanent burden to her family. Those admissions should be treated with care, not used as sensational tragedy. They reveal how chronic illness can attack identity as deeply as it affects the body. At 35, Sarah Hyland is not a child star quietly fading beneath illness. She is an actress who continued working through dialysis, surgery, rejection, and recovery, while rarely allowing the audience to see the effort involved. Her family gave her 2 extraordinary gifts of life: What Hyland built from those gifts was not a perfect recovery, but a future managed through medication, monitoring, resilience, and gratitude. On television, Haley Dunphy often appeared carefree. Behind the laughter stood a woman learning that survival can require accepting help and understanding that needing others does not make a life less valuable.
Jamie Lynn Sigler, 45 age. Now, Jamie Lynn Sigler entered one of television's darkest families while carrying a secret almost no one around her understood. Born in New York in 1981, she was still a teenager when she became mezzo-soprano on HBO's The Sopranos. The role placed her beside James Gandolfini and Edie Falco in a landmark drama that changed television storytelling. Meadow grew from a sharp, privileged teenager into a young woman increasingly aware of the violence supporting her family's comfortable life. Off-camera, Sigler was beginning a very different confrontation with uncertainty. At approximately 20 years old, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease affecting the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. Symptoms had appeared earlier. During one frightening episode, she temporarily lost the ability to move her legs and was initially told she might have Lyme disease. After further testing, doctors determined that MS was responsible. Sigler kept the diagnosis private for roughly 15 years, publicly revealing it in 2016 because she feared Hollywood would view her as unreliable, physically limited, or impossible to insure. That secrecy became its own burden. While filming The Sopranos, she sometimes struggled with stares, fatigue, weakness, and physical scenes that once seemed effortless. Sigler has recalled that James Gandolfini quietly noticed something was wrong and gave her emotional space without forcing her to explain. He became one of the few people on the production she trusted with the truth. Multiple sclerosis does not follow one predictable path. Symptoms can include numbness, muscle weakness, balance problems, pain, vision changes, and overwhelming fatigue. Sigler has continued acting while adapting to changing mobility. In 2026, she spoke more openly about using assistance when necessary and portrayed a doctor living with MS on Grey's Anatomy, allowing her physical reality to become part of the performance rather than something she had to hide. Through the Messy podcast with Christina Applegate and her memoir, And So It Is, Sigler has described acceptance, not as surrender, but as the end of pretending. At 45, she is no longer protecting her career by hiding the disease. Mezzo-soprano survived by learning what her family refused to say aloud. Jamie Lynn Sigler's deepest transformation followed the same path. The truth became less frightening once she stopped carrying it alone. Behind every diagnosis was a private storm the cameras could not capture. Fear of losing work, public judgment, and the pressure to appear strong forced many of these stars to hide pain until silence was no longer possible. Their brightest moments often unfolded beside treatments, exhaustion, and uncertainty no audience could see. Yet illness could not erase what they created. Their films, songs, performances, advocacy, and courage remain larger than any medical chart. Some transformed private suffering into research, awareness, and hope for millions. Their bodies may have changed, but their influence, humanity, and determination remain powerful, visible, and impossible to silence. Which story affected you most, and which celebrity showed the greatest courage in facing illness publicly? Share your answer in the comments. Then like this video, subscribe to Black Hollywood Uncut, and hit the notification bell for more honest stories from beyond the spotlight.